Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
I definitely can see, obviously, your point there. And it's so important because I think that we don't ever, I don't know. I just don't know if parents ever talk to their kids and say, okay, here's the things to be watchful for and look out for, or how to even do it. Right. And I think it's just like, just pay attention to them. That's really, it's just paying attention. It's just paying attention. And I think given the current state of America right now, there's a lot of people not paying attention to a lot of things. And that's obviously what has allowed a lot of things that are going on today, I think, to perpetuate and to reach a lot of fever pitch levels. So a lot going on, obviously, in the world today, in America today, for the first 12 days of the year, it's definitely got a lot of shock value. It's like, what? Yeah. So, if you thought 2026 was going to start off as a slow year, you are absolutely, to me, it's almost as if the year ended and then all of a sudden it was like January 1st. It was like, all right, cool. Let's put the turbochargers on, baby. Let's just go. Let's just go. Yes. And I feel like it's been that way. Economic data looks good, better than most people would think. Fed just lowered rates, I think, again, or are getting ready, I think, to lower rates. But I think the biggest thing, Len, that I think everyone has looked at with the shock value, obviously, has been with the recent altercation between ICE in Minnesota, and I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank right now. The young woman's name who lost her life in the car. Renee Good, and I just don't. I know, Len, you and I had spoken, and then Len, you and I had texted, and it's only, I think, you felt it very necessary, and I agree to have a little bit of a conversation about that today. So I'll let you take it away, throw it for you over the way, Len, and then I can kind of give you my perspective on it. I am aware of it. I've looked at it. I do have a position and a stance and opinion on it, but given it was something from your angle, I'll let you give you the respect of opening it up with that.
Okay. There are very few times that I have a visceral, emotional level of outrage. Sometimes I have an opinion and sometimes I have strong feelings about it, but it doesn't necessarily impact me emotionally. And I would say this situation impacted me emotionally because you have in our faces almost this sense of it's an individual bystander, American citizen that gets shot in the face and killed by an officer who is supposed to protect and serve. And when you think about this lady, she has 3 children. Her youngest is 6 years old, and they'll never see their mom again, who just was out, and I don't want to paint the picture as if she didn't do anything wrong. I don't want to do that at all because it isn't black and white in that strictest of a sense. But given the fact that she was out and just her interaction, because I looked at the footage from as many angles as I could find, I saw from the officer's perspective. I saw from, another perspective where she was driving off. And when I look at all of the facts that I saw with my own eyes, I know there's some room for interpretation. One side says, hey, she took this vehicle and she viciously tried to attack him and used her vehicle as a killing device. And she's a domestic terrorist. And then the other side is saying she's an innocent mother who was getting ready to let a car go and she was getting ready to make a right turn. And the ICE officer stops her and she says, hey, dude, I'm not mad at you. And he walks around and she takes off because he starts to say, get out of the effing car. And she starts to take off and then he shoots her in cold blood. I think both of those are extreme opposites of the same circumstance. What I saw was the fact that, yes, she probably should have complied with the officer and don't do anything to agitate. But when you look at all of the evidence, the wheels were turning right. She was attempting to flee the officer, and he shot her. Now, let's go into some of those details. The officer 6 months ago was involved in another type of altercation where he was stopping somebody, told them to get out of the car, and they dragged him over 100 feet, and he ended up having to get stitches and all of those things. Now, from my opinion, when you are in a high leverage situation where it could be life or death, especially as a police officer, it's important to take what's going on in their lives into consideration. And when you have to make snap decisions like that, to me, a person who was drugged for all of those feet and had to get had to get stitches and had to go to the hospital as a result of that, I don't know to what degree they can make the best informed decision given the high adrenaline, high emotions, and all of those things that are involved. And it seems to me that the officer made a really, really poor choice. And because of that, he committed murder and he killed that lady. And she wasn't an immigrant. And even if she was, wouldn't justify killing an innocent person that way. So I've got a lot more to say. I'll stop right there because I'm interested to hear your feedback. But I was viscerally impacted by just seeing that from a symbolic standpoint, because police are there to protect us, not to kill us.
I agree with a lot of what you said on this, and I have also watched it from all perspectives, and there's a lot to talk about with it. And I think I really have drawn to the conclusion that ultimately, it's her responsibility. Ultimately, she is not here today because of her judgment and her choices. That's simply it. And I'll explain why that's so important. Now, as I've watched it over and over again, I also need to make sure that when I watch it, I take into effect the whole overview, like you have as well, Len, where you go, dude, this officer recently had something where he was involved in something like this, right? Which you brought up. And that has to be taken into account too. But here's the reality behind it. Both are at fault on this one. And my gut reaction is as I've watched it, I can understand why he shot her. And I can also understand that, you could have probably got out of the way. You probably didn't need to go that extreme with it. I don't know if it fully warranted pulling out your firearm and taking her out, because obviously he did get hit by the car. I mean, when you watch the video, he gets, you're right. I mean, he gets hit by something because he falls down or something happens. And then you see it in both angles. And ultimately she didn't need to do that. And ultimately he probably didn't need to shoot. And I think it's like 50% is like, dude, he could have, because it's self-defense, because he could have been killed too. And the narrative would have been completely different. Look, if the officer would have been ran over and killed, no one would have talked about it. There would have been no outrage. There just wouldn't have been, because that's culturally where we are right now in America. We all know that. There would be outrage within the cohort or the groups of people that are law enforcement supporters or enthusiasts, but there wouldn't have been. And what's crazy about this, Len, too, and we can talk about this too, but we don't even see massive outrage around the country like we would have had it been a minority group. There would have been even more outrage probably, but we don't see that, right? Because it was a Caucasian woman. So there's so many different things that play with it, but the ultimate reality is that somebody lost their life and they didn't need to. But it was her life, and she should have protected it. She should not, and ultimately that's where the problem comes from. Where in America today, we just have an education problem. I mean, we have a lot of problems, but this woman should have understood and should be educated and should have been educated while she was in school on civics. Because you know civics, I know civics. If you called me and said, dude, Chris, Tasha got shot by the popo because she was out being a vigilante in the streets, I go, there's no way, Len, you're lying to me. You're lying to me. And I have to just default to the fact that what sane woman with children would go out in the streets and be a vigilante when she just doesn't understand civics, which is, that's law enforcement's job. They're law enforcement. They're looking for people that are in the country illegally, criminally, illegally. And you are impeding that investigation and that pursuit with your vehicle. You're putting your life in danger. You're putting law enforcement's life in danger. And then furthermore, those two women and all those women had nothing nice to say to those police officers. They threw insults. They threw profanities. Come bring your shorts and your socks, whatever, big boy. Like, they are already escalating. And of course, that's law enforcement's job, is to de-escalate. And that's the first thing I said, is like, those officers needed to do a better job of de-escalating that situation, because ultimately they're the responsible party there, right? They're law enforcement, right? So they did a poor job of de-escalating that situation. But then it's like, dude, they're human. And if you have all these people yelling at you and saying these things to you and then impeding it and then putting your life in jeopardy, there's just so many things in compounding. But ultimately, if you don't like what's happening, don't go and be a vigilante. Go vote. Like, actually really vote. Like, actually really go civically be responsible and vote. Not just, I voted, it's not going to make a difference. No, go put a sign in your yard. Go get involved in a political group. If you're that passionate, then go be passionate. Don't be a vigilante on the streets, because that's what happens to vigilantes. So she knew that, right? She should, and maybe she didn't or not. But, and I'm going to throw it back over to you, and I'll wrap it up this way, Len. Ultimately, someone needs to do a better job of educating people about civics. And ultimately, she should have not have been on the streets. She shouldn't have. And ultimately, those cops, those law enforcement, they should have practiced better restraint and not even put themselves in a situation where they could have even been ran over. Dude, suppress her car. Pit maneuver it. Put spike strips in front of her. I don't know. Why do we got to pull the fire out all the time to enforce action on people? That's where I have an issue, where I'm like, bro, you guys have so many tools at your disposal. Disable her vehicle and then pull her out of the car and arrest her, because she deserved to be arrested at least. There's no argument there. So
I mean, I will argue. I mean, because based on what I saw, Chris, okay, there's a lot of things that I want to unpack in what you said, and
they shouldn't have been following law enforcement. They shouldn't have been harassing law enforcement.
I agree with that.
They should be vigilante. She should be at home taking care of her 3 kids.
Okay, so
sorry, because if I was a vigilante in the street, if you or I. And there's plenty of things that you and I could still be angry about.
What does she do that makes you classify her as a vigilante, though? I don't understand what you're saying.
Because she's part of the anti-ICE movement, where she doesn't want ICE in the streets going after people that are. So if you go on social media, it's all over. There are girls and women that are following ICE around. If you and I followed a sheriff around, they deserve to arrest us. Bro, don't arrest us.
It was her wife that was the one that was active. If I recall the case correctly, she was out and about. And I agree with you that you should never do anything to agitate. Okay, but what I saw, and I have to go back, and I wish we could take a look at it together, is what I saw was there was a car that passed by.
This is our New Year's resolution to our audience. We are going to do a live, and we're going to do this, and we're going to pick the hottest things of Q1, and we're going to go and do it live so we can look at it together. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Len. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so what I saw was there was a car, like it looked like she was getting ready to take off. Okay, and in fact, let's I'll send you the video that I looked for. That I'm referring to. And so what it looked like to me is there was a car that passed by. So she was on Portland Street, which is crazy considering what's been going on in Portland, right? So she's on Portland Street. She's getting ready to make a right-hand turn. Her vehicle starts to take off, and then a car passes by, so she stops. After that happened, an ICE agent walks up to her and he says, he starts saying what he's going to say. And she's like, and then he starts walking to the back. She's like, dude, I'm not mad at you. And so he walks back and he looks at her license plate and stuff like that. So there was nothing that I saw on any of the footage that showed that she, as an individual, was agitating. Now, you may have some other footage and all of that, but then the other issue is that when the issue escalated when he told her to get out of the car, and she takes off, which I don't agree that she should have taken off. We agree about the fact that he didn't need to pull out his firearm and shoot her, because it was totally over the top aggression on his part. And I don't think that she did anything worthy of being killed. And I think we agree on that. Where we disagree,
I think it was escalated too quickly. She was an active protest. I
didn't see that. So I didn't see. I know her wife was, but I didn't see her with that. So I'm not here. I'm not going to dispute what you're saying because I didn't see it. But
right, and in respect to that of the law, Len, if you break into a store and you're stealing, and I'm just there for moral support, I'm guilty just as much as you are.
Yeah, but protesting is a First Amendment right. You have the right to protest.
Right, but protesting versus impeding. But impeding law enforcement.
I didn't. Okay, maybe I didn't. She blocked
her car. She used her car. She used her car to block the truck. The ICE was after these cars, and she blocked that from happening. I need
to relook at it through that lens, because what I saw before ICE approached her is that she was getting ready to make a right-hand turn. Now she may have been going out to block it, and because it was coming too fast, she decided to stop. I certainly am not going to try to speak to that because I don't know what her intentions were. But there are a couple of points that I want to talk about that you mentioned. Like, for example,
either way, before you go forward, Len, she should not have been killed. You and I think it escalated too fast. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we agree on that. I think with the officer, because what I've noticed when officers pull people over, they're supposed to either be on the passenger side, and they typically have them roll the window down there, or if they're on the driver's side, they're on the side of the car, never in front of the car. So at no point should he have ever been in front of that vehicle whatsoever. So if she were to drive forward, then there's nothing to hit because he's not there. And so because there was, because you can clearly see that her tires turned right. The other thing is there actually has been, from what I saw, I don't know how many people were there, but there have been quite a lot of protests that have taken place because of her killing. I saw, looking at it, eyeballing it wise, there were definitely hundreds, if not thousands, of people that were out. And I think the moral outrage and the public display of rebuke toward the ICE enforcement was justified. And I think that the fact that people were out protesting about that specific incident happening, I'm glad that it happened, because it should have been. And I think, to your point, there should have been more people out and about protesting that, because of the fact that you have an American citizen, regardless of her race, ethnicity, and all that, that's a person that wasn't shooting at an officer, because there's a higher responsibility that law enforcement has in dealing with the public. Because, for us as citizens, there, we have a right to protest, and we even have a right to ask for the officer's, name and badge number and all of that. I've never been a fan of agitating police officers. I'm never a fan of agitating anybody with a firearm, because they're humans. They can have a bad day, and they could have ran into somebody that raised up their adrenaline, and they could take it out on you. I'm never a fan of that. But I also am never going to blame a citizen for getting killed because she made some bad choices. She made some bad choices. She shouldn't have done anything but comply because there was nothing for her to be guilty of. But because she made some really bad choices, she paid for it with her life, and she didn't deserve that.
Yeah, and I think that's where and I agree. Your point is so solid there. Look, when you're law enforcement, you do need to understand that you have to act with more prudence, and you have to act with more self-control, and you have to act with more discipline and restraint, because you ultimately do have authority and the power, and you have a firearm, and most people don't. I just don't. When you look at it and you watch the videos from all the angles over and over and over and over again, it just reminds me of one of those situations where, and I'm not trying to draw a conclusion, but it just reminds me of that, because this is the easiest way I can explain it, where it's just one of those fluke things where it's kind of almost like you run the dog over with a car. It happens so fast and you don't even realize and you don't even know it. You know what I'm saying, Len? It's one of those moments when you watch the video, it had all the ingredients to go, oh, dude, this is de-escalate. It's good. Because it happens so fast that it's like, you got to watch it again and again, because it's like, it happens in a blink of an eye. And it's one of those rare occurrences that we just have to understand, look at it and go, dude, we gotta calm this down. And that speaks much.
And to your point, go ahead, Chris.
That speaks much, because I want to hear what you want to say, and I think this will help you too. That speaks much to your point that you have previously emphasized very strongly on a national level and even a global level. We really gotta tone down the rhetoric, like even calling her a domestic terrorist, bro. Like that. Stop.
Like, you gotta calm that down.
Stop.
That's a lot, man.
Dude.
And that she's not a domestic terrorist. I'm sorry. A person who protests and exercises her First Amendment rights because it's against what you believe personally does not make you a domestic terrorist. She didn't hurt anybody. She didn't harm anybody. She didn't kill anybody. She didn't take up any arms. She didn't suggest for other people to take up any arms. And if I'm wrong, anybody who's out there who sees any evidence to the contrary, I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong, and I'll rescind everything that I say. But under any definition, there's nothing that suggests that she was a domestic terrorist. And the point that I was going to make up when I interrupted you earlier was the fact that, again, that police officer, when you talk about toning things down and it's a split decision for him, I believe very strongly that his split second decision making was impaired because of what happened 6 months prior. I believe that if he had not been drugged down the street, I believe, because for us as humans, it's fight or flight, and survival is supreme. It trumps, it supersedes anything rational in the moment. And I believe that his brain told him, you need to neutralize this threat, because this threat is getting ready to drag you down the street, and this time you could die, so it's me or her. Now, was he thinking all of those thoughts? No, but his gut level instant trigger reaction was, let's neutralize the threat, because he had a background. He served in, as in the military and things like that. So he's been in law enforcement for numbers of years. So I'm sure over 20 years, he's seen some things, right? And so I think in situations like that, especially high pressure places, like if you're an ICE officer and you're going to places like Minnesota, Los Angeles, Portland, or Brooklyn, New York, or Miami, Florida, where there's high, instances of immigration, if you're ICE, you have to know that there's going to be some tension. And the people that are in power who employ those ICE agents need to understand that if an individual has situations that have happened recently that could create a trigger where they make a bad impulse decision, they need to be located in a different place where they can still do their job, but the tensions aren't so high. And with everything going on in Minnesota right now, man, that tension is so thick you can cut it like a knife, man. And he does not need to be there. So
yeah,
so anyway,
real.
man, yeah. So I hope that...
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, man. So I hope ultimately that... do you think he'll be tried for murder?
I don't think he will be. I really don't. I don't think he will be, and I think they're going to find the shooting justified. Just simply because it's too easy to... I don't know how that works. I really don't. I don't know. He might be wrongful death. I don't think it'll ever have legs. I really don't think it'll have legs. I think what's ended up happening is that he'll probably be taken off the job. I mean, I don't see how you keep him on the job. He should be, and he shouldn't have been there if he had an incident 6 months ago. There's just no way. I understand 100%. Staffing is an issue, but again, you can't control everything. And this all boils down to the same exact issue and problem. If we go to the same root cause, if we had not had broken immigration policies and allowed this to happen, we wouldn't have this problem to begin with, because we would need ICE on the streets like this.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I think that he should be tried. Now, whether the courts find him, guilty and all of that remains to be seen. I agree with you. I don't think he will be tried, but I do think he should be tried.
Well, I definitely think before we try him, there needs to be an internal investigation first before we 100%. Go to that extreme.
I agree.
Because he's law enforcement. 100%. He's still acting in a job where he's given the authority to do that. And again, when I look at the footage, it's difficult for him not to want to make that move, and I get it. But then I go back to it and I go, why did he just tase her?
Absolutely.
And why? Absolutely. I don't know. But then you're thinking the taser might get run over by the car. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't see that the wheels are turning. I don't know. There's too many things in there to create reasonable doubt for him and reasonable doubt for her. And that's the shitty thing about the situation.
That's why there should be an investigation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there has to be an investigation first. And that's why it's shitty, because each side has a lot of good reasonable doubt.
100%. I agree.
Each side has a lot of reasonable doubt. So, but, I mean, we'll see. Interesting. We'll revisit. Well, interesting to see what happens with it. Well, look, we're out of time.
It's always good, man. I enjoyed the conversation as always. And hey, listen, some of you are going to agree with Chris's points. Some of you are going to agree with my points. And depending upon the episode, you may disagree with both of us from time to time. And that's what good debate and good conversation should be. And so we want to hear from you. Please like, comment, subscribe. And we look forward to just giving you better and better content as we can. And as you continue to give us energy, we will continue to bring information that's relevant to you as it relates to your health, as it relates to your wealth. And also, we will talk about our opinions about current events. Even though we're not journalists, we're just two businessmen in two different arenas looking to give you value in any way that we can. So with that being said, Chris, have a good one and see you next week.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.